covered this semester? What are some of the items or topics that have been most interesting, confusing, helpful, whether it's a practice or a quality of the mind? Let's just take an inventory of this semester thus far. Since we're going to be taking a break, we won't see each other for 2 weeks. That's a week while you're on break, and then a week while you're coming back to then pick up where we've left off, so to speak. So that's a bit of time. That's a stretch. What can we do during that break that actually reinforces and reminds ourselves now so that we can reinforce some of these things over the break? Because actually 2 weeks is an extraordinarily good and useful amount of time to deepen and strengthen, or to re-engage around things that maybe have just been stressful. It's also a period of time for things to just atrophy. It's like, so, self-leadership, yes.
Self-care practices.
Okay, so self-care practices. And what are some of the self-care practices that you all have found?
Spending time with friends.
Okay. Family and friends. And some of you may have that opportunity during this break. Yes, what else?
Integrating more outside time into our day-to-day.
So what's outside time?
Like if I have a bunch of reading to do, I can sit outside and do the reading instead of in the library when it's really sunny and nice out.
So whatever it might be, getting outside. There's a lot of interesting research on the value of that in many ways, yes.
Staying consistent and taking care of your skin and your hair.
Yeah.
You can call it skincare routine.
Absolutely, and there's a lot to be said. When you're doing your skincare routine, where's your attention?
Yes.
Right. So, in some ways you might be like, I like doing this. It feels relaxing, or I like to. Well, yeah, that's all, and it's a nice way to be sort of directing your time and energy. But what are one of the reasons why? Well, attention. Very nice. Yeah.
I was going to share something else that we've learned outside of self-care, focus on listening, and kind of 3 different stages of listening.
Oh, okay, nice. Listening. What are the 3 different stages?
Listening to yourself, listening to learn, and listening to connect.
Okay, very nice. And if you're with family and friends, can you listen in one of these ways? What might be one of the ways that you could have on your mind as even going into a conversation with others? If you're listening intentionally and with maybe some self-guidance and direction, what would be some of these? You're with family or friends this break, you're having in a different setting maybe, or just with a different thoughts of what you have to do the next day. Which of these would kick in? Yeah. Connect. And who would you be connecting with? Very nice. Any others would kick in? Learn, right. And who might you learn from? People you're talking to. And what other way might you? Yeah. And how might you, what would be an example of something you might learn about yourself as you're in this way, is connecting with yourself?
You become aware that your thoughts are wandering more than usual, so you can realize maybe I'm anxious or there's something going on that I need to address.
Yeah. And not to jump way ahead, but sometimes when you're talking to somebody, you look distracted. If you have that insight, you might say, I'm actually feeling a little anxious, right? Or somebody goes, what's going on? You seem a little, well, you can't know if you can't access it. And sometimes you might even be aware that you are a little bit not quite there. And you say, listen, I want to share with you. My mind is still having a lot of thoughts about this other thing. How did you know that? Unless you're aware that you're having thoughts about the other thing. And then the next question is, and does it make sense to? Is it useful to share that information? And if there's confusion, then it could be helpful. And it sometimes could just be what we might call too much information. So how do you tell the difference, right? What else? We've got listening, self-care. Any other self-care? Yes?
Exercise.
Exercise. What kind of exercise do you like to do when you have your brothers?
Weightlifting.
Okay, right. You know, like we have exercise. We've got mindfulness practices. Weightlifting, focused attention, right? Cardio, body scan, right? What's another type of yoga? So, you know, the different types of exercise, different types of mindfulness practices, everything sort of, and you don't go to the gym and say, I'm exercising and do everything, or think you have to do everything. There might be the thing that you have found to be useful. And that's sort of what we're exploring here. Mindfulness practices, what you have found to be useful, and the length of time. And anybody have it where you've gone to the gym to start a routine and then it sort of hit and miss, stops and starts, takes a little while to get it going. And then maybe over time it finally kicks into gear, or maybe over time you just choose to shift to something else. It's all very similar in many ways. There was another over here. Gian, you had your hand up?
I was just curious.
You're green. Okay, nice. Any self-care that you might add? No, look here.
Napping.
Hmm?
Napping.
Napping.
Me too. That is a good.
Resting.
Yeah, nice.
Not sleeping, but just like
Yeah, I could spend a whole class talking about the value of committing. It's unbelievably useful. But like many people, unbelievably useful. But like not unlike some mindfulness practices with some of us, or exercise, we can read about it. We can learn how it makes it. We can learn about the cognitive benefits of the nap, the significant cognitive benefits, how it will significantly improve for most people, many people. You know, everyone's a little different, so maybe not you, but for most people, the 30-minute nap, in the middle of the day at the right time, will lead to enhanced productivity, enhanced well-being, clarity of focus. So many benefits. And yet what will happen as one is like, okay, today I'm going to give that napping a try at 2 o'clock. What might happen at 2 o'clock? That leads to no nap.
The zoomies.
What's the zoomies?
You get like a burst of energy out of nowhere.
Okay, you get the zoomies. And then all of a sudden, now does that stop you from actually taking a nap? No.
Just makes it harder.
That's a belief. That's a belief. Might be true, might not, but that belief alone will stop one from taking a nap. What's the point? It's going to be harder. I have too much energy now. The whole point is, I'm not saying that it can get in the way. It won't get in the way, but we can talk ourselves out of even the things that are useful, whether it's a mindfulness practice or whether it's a self-care practice, whether it's exercise, whether it's napping. What are some of the things that you're planning on doing maybe over this break that you haven't had time to do, but you're hoping to do? Golf. Okay. So, Gian. Name begins with a G. Golf begins with a G. Will I remember? I hope so. Do you have a plan for that?
Not really.
Okay. If you want it to happen, self-leadership. Okay, but it's interesting. So I'll be intrigued. I hope you get to golf. Do you think it's possible that might not happen? I'm glad to hear it. What other plans do you have for the break that might not be so? Yeah, try. Fishing. Okay. Where are you going to go fishing?
Pond or the house.
Okay. Well, that's accessible. That's accessible. Okay, good. Who else? Yeah. Going out on the boat. Very nice. Hanging out with my nephew, right. So we get hanging out with my nephew, right? Going out on the boat, fishing. They all sort of come together in different sorts of ways. We tease them apart because the brain likes to, when I was a kid, they had Ked sneakers. There was a red Ked and a blue Ked and a white Ked, and that was pretty much it. Maybe Converse something. That was enough. And now, I don't know how many sneakers there are, but we, for some reason, like to split and divide, expand. So what we're sort of exploring here with attention and with John, leadership, right? You've got a plan, you haven't formulated it yet, but you sort of know what's going to happen. Do you have a plan, or what's your plan?
got a couple different lures I'm gonna try out this time.
Okay, all right. So then that's a motivator, right? That's a nice motivator. We've got leadership, attention, relaxation. This week we're going to talk and looking forward to a conversation on awareness. And when you see these in all of these, you see attention, relaxation, they're embedded in all of these. Okay. What else? We've got the listening. We've got self-care. What other things have we this semester addressed? Settling techniques. Okay, don't get from Amazon Basics. They just arrived and they're not satisfying me.
I have two like really inky expo markers if you want to use them. Orange and pink, but I don't know if you have problems with that.
Do they erase?
Yes,
The
sir.
worst thing is they have
Like a permanent marker?
So let me ask you, first of all, are there any settling techniques here yet? Do you see any settling techniques on the board yet? What are some of the settling techniques? I identify as many as you see. Exercise. We're not talking about necessarily just for you, but in general, that fall in the category of settling techniques. Exercise. What else?
Skincare could be a form of relaxation.
Absolutely.
Talking to friends is a form of relaxation.
Right. What else?
Outside time can lead to
Outside.
observation.
What else?
I mean, there all are.
They all are. They all are. Right? They all are. But how you use it. And why do we do these things? Why do we want to exercise? We want to get outside because in some way, whether we are conscious of it or not, we sort of want to enjoy ourselves, settle, relax. And we can do these things intentionally, and then they can slip away. Anybody have something that you're planning on doing this break, but you know that it's hit or miss? A couple things have to fall into place for it to happen. You're hoping it happens. You're largely in control of it, but it may not happen. It could be, I believe in a week, 2 weeks, John will say, yeah, I went golfing 4 times and I had a great time. But maybe not, right? Maybe not, but probably so. I would be betting with you.
I feel like weather plays a role in all of it.
And you have control over.
No,
So-
that's what I'm saying. Like you only have so much control.
Right, I agree. I'm asking, is there something that you have control over that nonetheless may not play out because of getting a massage? Okay, so you have a plan to get a massage? Do you have a plan to do that?
Yes, I have an appointment.
And you have an appointment.
We love that.
Can't tell. Massage falls under self-care.
So good.
Yeah, very nice. Is it a settling technique?
Yes.
Okay, very nice. And how might it not happen?
Well, I've scheduled it 3 times now. So something comes up or like the timing doesn't work out or something's due. So there's things that come up that I feel I can't take the time to do that.
Right. Here's an important thing. I feel like can't take the time. This sort of sets the mood on. I feel like can't take the time. Sometimes it's a good decision to reschedule. 100%. You're not taking that. It's just not going to be productive. Sometimes it actually would be. But we let the feels like I don't have enough time. It grips us without necessarily sufficient awareness of its true nature. It's momentary. It's like clouds form. It looks like it's going to rain. But if you waited 3 or 4 minutes, maybe the clouds would pass. But you change your plans and you don't do the thing you were going to do. This is sort of what happens with us. So the key is, can we cultivate, in terms of our class, the key is, can we cultivate a quality of something? It has a little bit to do with attention, a little bit to do with awareness. I mean, can we be attentive to our intention, remember it? Can we have the leadership to be able to sort of say, I want to make a really thoughtful decision here. I'm not going to be momentarily waylaid by something that comes up out of the blue. Can we, as needed, settle ourselves to help make that a more informed decision? Can we be aware of the conditions that have come along and are changing And maybe in a few minutes, or not, but to be able to discern the difference. Okay, good. So I'm interested in, hopefully this week, there'll be less of those things that come up, less of those from our homework assignment. What would we call it? Like, what would be one of the things that you said came along that
Challenge? The challenge?
correct challenge? And what would be an example of a challenge that you had that disrupted the plan?
I got an email from work saying I had to do something like that day. So a
Okay.
new deadline.
Yeah, okay, good. And by the way, that's a great challenge when we're talking about reducing your challenges to something very concrete, because when you're writing your papers, that will serve you well. The not concrete challenge will serve you less well. Not having a challenge that you regard as a challenge will serve you poorly. So received an email saying received an email with an assignment due that afternoon. That would everybody agree if they were watching Carrie at her desk going, oh, I can't wait to go to my massage. I'm so excited. Bing. Hi, we need you to come in or work on this thing that needs to be done this afternoon. And P.S. Should you have any other plans like a massage, we know for sure not have time for that. So it's for sure not going to happen. So we're ruling out that discernment. That would be a challenge, right? Oh my God, I can't believe I got this ridiculous last minute email that's making me go work on this thing now. That would not be a challenge. That would not be a challenge. Why would that not be a challenge? There's a challenge nestled in there. There's so much that we've added to that. And as we'll talk about today and in time, it's the part that we're adding that actually moves us towards what? Obstacles, right? The challenges are going to continue to arise. Life is filled with challenges. Most of them we sign up for. Like if you're getting an email from an employer saying, you actually chose that. That was your choice. You chose that. And it can't be like unforeseeable. Like, oh my God, have you read Paul's graph? Because this is not foreseeable that he would ask me to work on something today. But the real difficulty that many of us will experience in those moments, the frustration, the whatever it might be, of course, you could also be very excited and happy. You've got a cool project to work on. But sometimes it feels not that way. And many times it is the obstacles that are adding insult to injury, the suffering on top of the pain, as you read about in this thing. Yes?
I was going to add kind of then in the opposite way. I think that was the first time, and the second time I canceled was one of my friends asked me to go to dinner. And I knew like that would be the only time I could see her that week. So then I chose I'd rather do dinner than the massage.
Right.
But then I was upset afterwards a little bit. But
switched.
I shouldn't have, but no, I mean it was fun.
Well, right. And
See you next week.
right, we do the best we can. We can't predict the future. And, if you're going to if you're going to make a mistake, erring on the side of doing something to be kind to a friend or spend time with a friend. Family and friends, it usually seems in theory like it's a good idea until Thanksgiving comes. And then maybe it is, maybe it's not. But oftentimes if being with family and friends is not, then the family or friend saying X, Y, or Z is a what? A challenge. And then the frustration, the anger, the confusion, the self-righteousness, the sadness, whatever it is, this isn't more in the domain of obstacles. And our mindfulness practice targets obstacles. It's not the job. It's not the person that said that thing. People will be who they are, and the world will be what it will be. That doesn't mean that we stay with the job. Maybe we make the decision to leave the job, but not because of the obstacle, because we see the challenge for what it is and go, you know what? I don't want emails coming at me, blah, 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 blah. Or maybe we do, but not because we're so angry that they're taking advantage of me. That's an obstacle. There's a bunch of obstacles and they're taking advantage of me. That's your own interpretation. But if I were in a situation where somebody were taking advantage of me, I would not want to be in that situation. But maybe that's my read. Maybe I could even go in and say, listen, I want to share with you. I love it here. I don't love these X, Y, and Z about being here. So I'm not going anywhere right now, but I just want to share with you that if that's going to persist, then I'm going to maybe be rethinking this. Now, people that's vulnerable, it's like, well, if you're going to rethink it, why don't you just leave now? That's what we're worried will happen. But that tends to be an obstacle as well, some fear about the future. And if we're a valued employee, they actually may say, nope, can't, or okay, let's talk about it. But the obstacles will get in the way of being able to navigate those decisions or even navigate those conversations smartly, and can even lead to overreactions. So, yes, even when we do. Okay, other settling techniques. PMP. Okay, so we got the PMP. I don't know, they call it settling technique and have settling aspect. What are the three parts of the PMP? Pause. Which we have thus far used as a what? What has been our instruction regarding the pause? Because you can pause 1,000 different ways. I was running a little late today as I was walking through my PMP point. Slow down. Chose not to come to a stop. That was my pause. But we've been taking the pause as a what? Well, no, that's not the pause.
Stop.
But I'm glad you said that, because I think somebody did this in their assignment as well. The pause is the stop. These are three parts. These are three distinct parts. They each have their whole universe of possibilities. Then after the pause, we have the, Gabby?
The deep breath. The
Which-
settle.
The settle, very nice. So if we see the PMP as a settling technique, which it could, we're really sort of emphasizing this part here, but it's more than that, so to speak. Okay, and who said, you said, what would be a settling, if the PMP were a settling technique for you, and you could totally use it as a settling technique. You could say this whole three-part thing is a settling technique, absolutely. But it's the middle one that sort of makes it especially so. The way you're looking at relaxation. What would be your go-to
Box breathing.
box breathing? What are other settling techniques or breathing practices that you have found to be of interest?
Triangle breathing.
Triangle breathing? Any others?
I like all these different.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's right. Breathe, breathe, breathe.
Yeah.
Any others? If you say line breathing outside the class, no one's going to know what you're talking about, but it's the slow in breath, the slow out breath. But we have a line, we have a triangle, we have a square. What other settling techniques are there, aside from the breathing practices? Affirmations. So what could be an affirmation that you have found to be potentially worthy of drawing upon from time to time?
This too shall pass.
This too shall pass. When I was in traffic, studying in traffic, oh my God, I'm in traffic, so annoying. So I could go in two different directions. Frustration. Got to speed up, try to get around, all the stuff we do in traffic. This too shall pass. Changes our relationship to it, especially when, like the weather, not a lot you can do necessarily. Very nice. This too shall pass. That one's been around for a long time, so maybe it's worthwhile. This too shall pass. Also, when you are doing a mindfulness practice and you focus your attention on the breath, and you notice a little tension in the shoulder, what's likely to happen to that tension sooner or later? It'll pass. And you have a thought about some 2 weeks from now kind of a thing that gets you all little going and agitated, because that's what thoughts do. It's not. My mind is thinking about something in the future that is an uncertainty that is consequential to me in a way that I would not want to happen. I will feel anxious. That relationship it's not like all the mindfulness in the world is not going to stop something from if my mind gets there. And the further it gets and the longer it stays, the more I will. But what's that thought? That thought that just popped up about 2 weeks from now. What will be happening to that thought? In fact, already has happened to that thought. Well, I might forget about it, but the thought itself, it's past. So this too shall pass. is not only sort of sage advice, but every practice that we're doing is reminding us of it at a more experientially, I know this is the case. It's one thing to say, this too shall pass, and go, yeah, but right now I'm frustrated and I'm freaking out. But this too shall pass. I know, but I don't care because right now it's not passing. Because we don't know it. We don't know it. But if we knew it, if it was deeply absorbed, name one thing in your life, however wonderful or sad, this is not a question to answer, just anything, however wonderful or not wonderful it was. Life is filled with wonderful and not wonderful things, where the event itself and the experiences at that particular moment, now things can linger, you can continue to think back on the wonderful and think back on the not so wonderful, but that's bringing it back. What anger have you ever felt that didn't, what judgmental belief that you had about someone in that moment of them saying or doing something that did not pass? Now, what we do with that, whether we cling to that, whether we come back to that, whether we persist on that, whether we perseverate on that, those are different questions for which this, and this can be very helpful. Okay, very nice. We've got settling techniques, we've got the affirm, we've got the box breathing, the belly belly breathing, triangle breathing, line breathing. They fall into which of the settling techniques? Relax. This too shall pass falls into the which settling technique? Affirm. There's two other settling techniques, one that we've addressed, one that we're addressing today. Well, we'll get to, yes, observe is today's, very nice. And the other one? Which is a type of self-care. Self-care falls under. The nurture is bigger than self-care, but self-care falls under it. Okay, very, very nice. What else have we explored in this class thus far?
We have chapter on solitude.
Solitude, okay. So solitude. We've got two dials. And one dial represents the what? The external. What's an example right now, if we just pause and listen, what's something that would be in the external? External. And if we were all jabbering away now, if it's a 1 here and a 10 here and everything in between, if everyone's talking, would it be going up or down compared to now? Up. What's another external right now? The sound of the air. And if it was sound over there and there was tapping over there and there was, air, leaf blowing over there, would it be going up or down? Up. And if the leaf blower stops, would it be going up or down? Up. And what could you be doing if you were like in the library now, but you could do whatever you wanted to do with your technology? What might you be doing in the library right now that would be turning up the dial, the external dial? You'd be playing music?
Like on social media scrolling.
Social media scrolling. We got the music, social media, we got sounds. Are any of these problematic? But are they could be, absolutely. Are they, by their very nature, problematic? No. No. Who turns up and down the external dial for the most part? Well, I'm thinking about you're going to say, well, there's a leaf blower, Scott. You can't do much with a leaf blower.
That's what I was thinking.
I know that's what you're thinking. But I couldn't I? How could I?
Noise canceling headphones.
I could put on noise canceling
You're
headphones.
speaking the weird.
I could
Not
say,
focusing on it?
what?
Just not focusing on it.
Well, that's very interesting. It's still an external. It just is registering less.
Yeah.
Correct. So if the dial would go down, correct. So what would be, so the external dial we can turn up, we can turn down, and if you are in the library and you have your phone on, looking at your text and you're reading your thing and you're listening to a pop music and you're periodically checking in on a podcast, is your external dial high or low? And it could be too high. I'm agnostic, by the way. If I see somebody in the library and they've got all this stuff going on, I don't know them. I don't know anything about them. But we know ourselves, or we can know ourselves a little better if we check in with ourselves. And sometimes this helps us see our own selves more clearly. So what can we do? What's the lesson of the solitude? Solitude is what? What's the definition of solitude? Do you remember, PJ?
How the book describes it?
You can just make it up. You can we'll play with whatever it is that you vaguely recall.
Being isolated from other people, mainly being isolated from the input of other people's minds.
Not isolated from other people. You could be on a bus, you could be in the library, you could be here. In fact, we're all here, and different levels of solitude. Like if one of you is checking your phone, I don't think anybody is, though I have seen it happen. By the way, some of you have come in and said, I'm waiting for a very important message. I apologize. I just want to let you know I might be doing it. I'm like, thank you very much for letting me know. But if you're looking at your phone, then your external dial is what? And if in every other respect we all were in the exact same place in terms of sounds and and noticing things, who's got the higher external dial? That person. Who is experiencing a little less solitude? Are they not experiencing solitude? To a lesser degree. So solitude is not, there's solitude, there's not solitude. Solitude is a gradient. And you can, and I can, turn up and down the external dial if we choose. And have you ever had it where you sort of know that there's too much stimulus coming along, but you sort of can't help yourself? So we're exploring how it is that we can help ourselves. But the knowing it is the first part. And then the ability to navigate it is really where all the action is. Your intention and your behavior. This is a class, as we've talked about many times, you've got your intention, and then what do you do? And are they this far apart so they don't seem to come together? Or are they this far apart so that they really seem to meet up? And the external dial is something that we can turn down, but we're used to it being at a certain level. We're sort of used to it. And then when you go to sit down to have lunch or something, and maybe you have your phone, maybe you don't, maybe you're thinking, maybe with that thing we read about solitude, maybe if I just ate lunch and I just sort of let my processor recharge, because that's the idea. If you've constantly got inputs coming in, and it doesn't matter if it's opera and some Niels Bohr, watching videos. It doesn't matter how high and seemingly important that it is. You can't. Your processor is not. You're not processing the input of your own mind. You're not percolating over the things you've previously taken in. You're just taking in more. So it's a balancing act. We want to take in from the outside world. We want to be entertained. We want to learn, but we also want to process. Yes?
How does zoning out play a role in the effect that the external stimuli is having on you? Like I could have something on, but I could be in my own head at the same time, not hearing a word they're saying.
Right. So there's two things. One is now you're pointing in some ways to which dial? Okay, and if I just take and build on what you said, though you may not have intended like this, but if you're in your mind thinking about, oh my God, I can't believe this, and what am I going to do tomorrow, and I can't believe that thing from yesterday, that's like social media and music and all these things. You're just like, attending to all these different things, but you're not doing it on purpose, because that's just what the internal dial is doing. Then if that's happening, what will happen this gets to Gabby's interesting point that I hadn't really ever really fleshed out before, but the external hasn't changed. Right? There's all this stuff still going on, but you're not, the awareness of it, the light bulb has gone down because the flashlight of attention is now clinging to these internal thoughts. Is that responsive to the question? So we do have this interesting, not tension, but this relationship. And the internal dial, what would be a kind of pleasant aspect of what's going on in the internal dial? What's an example of something pleasant in the internal dial?
Thinking about something happy.
Think about something happy. You're just like, oh, like there's and your attention is there, whether you know it or not. Yeah, you're just thinking about this thing. And if you know it, that can be a nice little daydreaming moment of pleasure. And if you don't know it, it still can feel good, right? What could be a internal dial thing that doesn't that moves in the other direction? Unpleasant.
Anxiety-inducing thought.
So what would be the thought? That would be the anxiety-inducing thought.
I don't know, something bad. I don't know.
Okay. Does anybody want to fill in the blanks?
Ruminating on a mistake you made in a final.
Okay. Ruminating on a mistake you made in the final, right? Both cases, you've got internal dial activity. You've got content in the mind. One piece of content happens to be resulting in a pleasant after effect, the other one, an unpleasant one. And what do we sometimes do when we're sitting ruminating over something that took place in the past or worrying about something in the future and we sort of can't get our mind off it? What do we sometimes turn to? The external dial. We turn the external dial up. So if we could watch this all day long and we could sort of just look at things purely from the lens of internal dials and external dials. And I share with you and I encourage us over the course of the semester, we can look at things from the perspective of the snow globe. What's happening to the snow globe? There's a lot of insight that can come from checking in our own snow globe and others, not just in terms of checking in and being more aware of and maybe attentive to aspects of what's going on that a moment earlier we weren't, but also things that we might do to settle the activity of the snow globe at various times. Here we're talking today, we're going to get to challenges and obstacles. But here we're saying, let's look at the internal and external dial because we can turn down the external dial. Can we turn down the internal dial? You're having a ruminating thought. Can you stop yourself from having a ruminating thought? Can you literally go in and stop it like you can turn off of social media? No. No, you can't directly stop yourself from, you may not even know you're having that thought. But what can you do, just so that this isn't so abstract? Because you actually can affect and influence the internal dial, but not the same direct way.
Notice it and redirect your attention.
Okay, so it's hard to redirect if you don't notice. So the notice is the thing that we sometimes say, if I just need to notice it. And a big part of our exploration this semester is yeah, that sounds like a nice thing to do, but the noticing, just like you cannot turn up and turn down the internal dial directly, you can't turn up and turn down the noticing dial, which is part of the internal dial directly. It happens or it doesn't. You can't make yourself notice something. You can do things to enhance the likelihood of noticing it. All of our practices are in the service of being more aware so that we notice. But when we do notice, then we can actually take action that isn't stopping. It's not like, oh, there's that ruminating thought. I stopped it. But in a very brilliant realization of what we can do, how did you say it? We can redirect our attention. Can your attention be in two places at the same time? No. So if it's been on this ruminating thought, this persistent thought, and then you redirect your attention, there's leadership. It requires awareness or just a pattern of habit that you've just gotten into. But it requires awareness, the noticing, to then redirect your attention. And sometimes it can be very hard to do that when the thing you're thinking about is very anxiety-provoking or really ruminative, and especially if you've sort of gotten into the habit of that, as all of us have to some extent, in which case this can help us deliver on that. You'll have a reading in a couple of weeks. There's a nice practice. Some people call it a mindfulness practice. Some people call it a relaxation practice. I think if I say it, you can probably tease it apart for me. You all know the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 practice? Oftentimes it's like if you're feeling anxious, some will say, or you're having just a lot of thoughts that are not serving you well. What's the 5?
Things you see.
Name 5 things you see. So let's do this right now. Look around and just say softly so we can hear, but just so we all know we're sort of doing this, just identify 5 things you see. Clock. And then there's 4. What's the 4? 4 things you can touch. Okay. So what can you? You don't have to go anywhere. Touch 4 things. And then 3 things that we can.
Smell?
You could say smell. Technically, it's harder to, but let's do it that way because the order is less important than the pivoting. It's a pivot, isn't it? And so let's see and it's not like you have to find 3 things, but let's see what we might. 3 things you can smell. We can. Oh yeah. Became a different professor. This is actually nice. Nice. Okay. 3 things we can smell. Thank you. 2 things we can. Here. And then 1 thing we can taste. Okay. So that's a very effective for many people. What did that take? Even with all the conversation around it, a minute maybe? Now, many people will find that will significantly downregulate agitation, anxiety, excessive thinking, rumination, just feelings of antsiness. It's like the body and the mind are sort of moving in a certain direction. And it may not be, and it's a direction that maybe is not in alignment with how you'd like that moment to be. But it is what it is. This happens all the time. But then we're doing really a variation of present moment pivot, right? You paused, you stopped, and then you settled, and then you observed. And that settling and observing here are sort of coming together. We did a lot of what you might call observing, right? But what would be the attention component to that? Why would it be? Because in your paper, and we'll talk about this today and in time, you're going to be asked to explain the why. Why is the thing that you are advocating or you are sharing has the potential to be helpful? Why does it have that effect? And here you could say in your paper, for example, the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 is a great practice. I've been doing it. It helps with da-da-da-da-da-da. I suggest it to you. And then you're going to want to share in your paper, for if no one else's, for my benefit and then for your benefit, but really for your benefit and for the reader's benefit, a little bit of the why. So it might be that 6 weeks ago, if I shared that practice, or if you've known that practice, you might just say, I don't know, it just helps you relax. But what are some of the components here?
So it takes your attention away from the anxiety or negative thoughts to the actual doing of the seeing, touching.
Okay. So we are, as Peyton set us in motion to explore, we are redirecting our attention intentionally. Who's doing the redirecting?
We are.
We are, right? Does it bring about certain qualities along the way?
Yeah, it relaxes you.
And do you think that might help you stay with the so these are all sort of, and are you having to before you can notice, when I said, when Gabby said, smell, you didn't know what there was going to be necessarily. You had to sort of momentarily open awareness, see what's there, and then go, oh, so there's this opening, there's this awareness, this light bulb gets brighter, and then the flashlight narrow and gather more information. This was flashlight, right? This, I didn't think I was going to smell this. Seeing it in the periphery was awareness. And then the brain is good at piecing things together and just naturally giving you good ideas or not so good ideas. So, and so we could dissect that practice and point to the awareness piece and the attention piece as helping to explain why it is. Now, here's one very, very important consideration. It's so subtle that I don't often say it, and I think it's very rarely remembered. It sounds like you're saying to distract ourselves from the rumination. And that's, I think, the way most of us would see that. We're distracting ourselves from the rumination, the ruminating thoughts. Yeah? Gotta distract myself. And then it seems to me, if that were the case, that this is sort of like a little device. It's a little device. We're distracting ourselves from this thing to make this thing less weighty on us. But I wouldn't suggest to you the possibility that the thing was never weighty in the first place. It was weighing on us. But what were we doing a moment or two before we started ruminating over that exam? We were having lunch. We were reading a book. We were listening to a podcast. That's what we were doing. That was our intention. And then the internal dial, because we don't control it, starts to think about maybe somebody walked past you and they were in that exam with you. An external challenge, like a reminder. There's this reminder of this thing. Now the internal dial gets going. So is the thought, the thing that you're ruminating on, is it the thing that matters that you got to distract yourself from? Or is it the distraction that took you away? And now you're reclaiming your original intention. You see, I think that you had a plan, then the internal dial just does what it does, and now you think you got to somehow, like, get back, you got to somehow, distract yourself from it. No, it's the distractor. It's the distraction. All you got to do is redirect. And the reason I say that is because if that offers you something, what it offers is that it's not this thing that matters. This thing just came out of nowhere. Don't give it more weight. And the more we get used to noticing it when it pops up and redirecting, we become more facile with doing just that. We notice sooner and we can then redirect or whatever it is. In time, as we'll talk about, sometimes I'll ruminate over something that maybe, a girlfriend broke up, 1983, I don't know why that happened, was it me? Then I'll be like, why do I keep thinking about this? Am I not lovable? What was I? And then all of a sudden, for a while, it's a little destabilizing. Like every time I think about it, I get sad or I get confused or I start to look for reassurance or something. But then at some point in time, if I'm steady, like if I can somehow be steady and there is this thought, there's this memory, I could begin to investigate it. We can do this in therapy with somebody who can be helpful, but we can also begin to see it more clearly. And all of a sudden I go, I'm not, I don't think that I was really loved. I don't think I was lovable, right? There's something about me that was not sufficient. And then I begin to go, wait a minute, is that true? Is that true that I'm not? Or she was just so, incapable of. Is that true that she was incapable of? And then you can investigate it for its accuracy, not to go deep and get, analytical, although I'm a fan of that. But this is not the mindfulness practice. It's seeing it more clearly. It's being able to parse it and go, oh, that's an assumption. That was a judgment. I don't know if that was true. And then it loses its, and now in time, maybe I don't go back to that point in time. But it was there in some ways, maybe. I'm going to share with you all a video to watch over the break. Do you all know who Herbie Hancock is? Okay, so he's a great jazz musician, great pianist. Played with Miles Davis. Do you all know who Miles Davis is? Maybe we'll play a little Miles Davis. And he tells a story that's in the book. I don't think we've gotten to it yet. He tells a story, and I'm just going to set it up, of how it was that he was playing in 1963 in Germany with an amazing quintet. Miles Davis, one of the greatest performers of all time, trumpeter, was doing his thing, and Herbie Hancock, who's an amazingly gifted musician, plays the wrong note. In jazz, if you know about jazz, it's sort of there's an impromptu, spontaneous part to it, but there's a lot of structure at the same time. He plays the wrong sound, and he just cringes. Have you ever had it where you just said or done or sent off the email or something, and you just you cringe? he had that moment. And then he goes on to explain, I think, something that we can apply to many aspects of our life if we could see the bigger picture in certain ways. So I'll leave it to the video. We'll talk about it when it's a 6-minute little thing. He's recollecting years later. Now it's many, many years later. But he concludes by saying, we take the poison and we turn it into medicine. We take the poison and turn it into medicine to heal and to grow and to learn. The poison is sort of like the thing that hurts, that we don't like. But many times we can, if we could attend to it skillfully, we can see that there's a reason we're hanging on to it. Yes.
Was that, I don't remember if we had talked about that. Was that the situation in which like the band member had thought that the guy did it on purpose? And
Did it on purpose? No.
like he's
Because you have a good memory, you've zeroed in on it, but we'll save it for the, I believe that it was in one of the readings. I thought it was creativity, but I believe it was in one of the readings.
Self-care.
Might have been listening. What?
Self-care.
Self-care. Blew it. Put in self-care. Okay, well maybe at the break, maybe I'll play it. We can listen to him say it. So it'll take the thing that you've read and bring it. Okay. So we've got the external dial, the internal dial. One of the key takeaways of solitude is this. It's not like there is solitude or there's not solitude. It's that any given moment you're in has a certain amount of freedom from the input of others' minds and a certain amount of input from other people's minds. Even if you're in a museum and you're walking around going, oh, what a beautiful work of art. Like, what could be more solitude than that? No one is there. It's perfectly quiet. It's whatever you're looking for, whatever solitude might mean to those of you who like the idea of solitude. It's like, oh my God, finally, I'm away from it all. No, you've got an amazing work of art in front of you that's the input of somebody else's mind. Is it valuable? Yes. Is it maybe even part of self-care? Yes. So that's why I'm not judging a priori the value of anything. But we can see how it affects us. And this is what we are interested in. So solitude is fine. I love, and less solitude is great. In fact, we need it. We have to have it. Partner comes in and goes, you're working on this and you're working on this. And I'm like, and I want you to read this opinion too. You're throwing off my solitude level. Like, no, that could be the thing that wins the case, or you find it yourself. So I'm spending a little time on this. We'll come back to it just so that there's a little clarity around it, because it's easy. I think it's clear in the chapter, but the subject matter is confusing unto itself, no matter how clear I hope to convey. All right. Anything else? What other things? Just to sort of get them up, and then we'll turn to our readings. What other settling techniques? Self-care. Of course, I'm crying inside, but.
Where does the snow globe fall under all this?
Well, I would say the snow globe is here. It's one of our metaphors. Okay, so very nice. It's a metaphor. And we can apply all of this to the snow globe. So you want to take a moment and do that?
Okay, you're aware that your snow globe is getting like shaken.
Okay, so if a moment earlier you were like having a snow globe moment. Okay. And then, yes, what's the path towards?
So you're aware.
You're aware.
You notice it. You put your attention to what's causing it to be shaken. Or you put your notice.
Well, it depends on what you want. So if you notice your snow globe shaking, what might be the first level thing that we might want to do when we notice our snow globe shaking? The very first thing. Level 1.
You aware of it?
Well, you have to be aware to move to level 1. So yes, this is like Hayden's notice and then redirect. You're aware.
Mm-hmm.
So if your snow globe is shaking, the way we've been talking about snow globe shaking, what would be the kind of thing over here? It'd be interesting. What would be the kind of thing that you would want next to happen if you notice your snow globe shaking and the agitation, say, accompanying it?
Self-leadership to stop this.
Okay, so I think you're absolutely right. Self-leadership is pivotal here, because if you're aware that your snow globe is shaking and there's no self-leadership, why would it stop? Why would there be any expectation? It might. But what would you want the leadership to do? You said stop. You can't necessarily stop your snow globe from shaking, but
use settling techniques.
Very nice. So you're aware the snow globe is shaking. It's shaking. You become aware at some level that it's shaking. This is the same thing as you're having lunch or something, and then you start thinking about that thing in 2 weeks. As you're thinking about that thing in 2 weeks, what starts to happen to your snow globe? It starts to shake. If you're aware of it while you're in conversation, you can like literally be in conversation and go, oh, interesting. This would be connecting with yourself while you're listening. And then you could do something in the first instance. It might just be like, let me just feel a little bit more at ease than I feel. And then we could do what? What could we do? Anybody in the first row? What could we do to help settle the snow globe? Like?
Line breathing or
Yeah, right. And then if that has been proven in itself in the past to be useful, then there's no reason why it wouldn't be potentially worthwhile in those moments. That's why it's good to have your practices and to be able to draw upon them, but you got to notice. And so, and then what happens as a result of doing the settling technique?
you relax.
Okay. And then what probably prompted the snow globe oftentimes to go off in the first place is a wayward attention. We lost track of our attention, catastrophizing, ruminating, and now we've gotten a little bit more control over our
Your feelings, your emotions. Your attention.
And when you are more intentional and able to keep track of your attention, then the way you feel is much more
Like under control.
at your control. Now, is it completely in your control? No, because this isn't completely in our control. If this were completely in our control, then we could just be like, I'm not going to have a wayward thought anymore. But then I wouldn't want to not have wayward thoughts. Sometimes they're pretty wonderful. So very, very nice. So in addition to the snow globe, what other metaphors have we learned? Just to name the metaphor. Did you even?
I have another,
Yes.
but flashlight.
Flashlight. And one more.
Michael.
The light bulb. In today's metaphor du jour. Okay. And who are you going to say, Alexa?
DNI. We learned DNI.
DNI. So DNI is a variant of this. Do not interrupt, because listening, you can listen in many different ways with many different levels. And this is DNI is the instruction as to what? To not interrupt. Is it always going to be a requirement that one not interrupt? No, because it's not a requirement, it's a practice. And what does it do? What kind of practice is DNI? It is a listening practice. What kind of mindfulness practice is it? Because by the way, I want you all to know, this is wonderful. What an amazing job you've done just lining up so many things. What has not been put up here yet? Mindfulness practices. Which I would say is no surprise, because but don't confuse it. Like going to the gym, like getting that massage, like taking that nap. It's not always so easy to shift gears. So I think it's fine for it not to be easy to shift gears, and maybe for you at times not to shift gears, or choose that's a gear you're not interested in shifting. I'm agnostic as to how you approach this. But don't think that it's because it's meditation, because it's exercise and it's napping and it's a lot of other things too. So there's something that runs a little deeper, which has something to do with attention and leadership, awareness, and relaxation. So D&I is a what type of mindfulness practice? Focused attention. And if you are, as I think Carrie, I can't remember for sure, said when it came to listening and you're talking to somebody and you're feeling anxious, what kind of a practice does that sort of touch on? Body scan. It's sort of both at the same time, right? And so because it's a practice, what's the elements of a focused attention practice? One, we choose an object. And then two, with the intention of staying with the object. We focus on an object with the intention to stay with the object. What are popular common objects? The breath,
AC. AC.
a sound,
Your chest rising.
feeling the chest rising, an object. Object for the focused attention practice is in some way serving as an anchor, right? And it's an anchor because if you tether your boat to the bottom of the ocean or whatever with an anchor, then when the boat begins to veer, what happens? It catches. The reason we have an anchor for the focused attention practice is that when our mind begins to wander, we're more likely to realize that it has wandered away because we had at least a moment earlier the intention to stay. And so after, with the intention to focus on the object, number 3.
And when you notice your mind wandering.
When you notice your mind wandering.
Number 4 would be to redirect your attention back to your object.
So if we apply it in the conversation context, so this, you could spend every conversation you have with every person you have. And as we'll talk about in time, even when you're talking to yourself, you ever had it where it's like this? Oh, I wonder what I should do I wonder what time it is. Like you just interrupted yourself. But every conversation that you have over the next 2 weeks can be a mindfulness practice that no one has to know you're practicing because you're going to place your attention on an object. What's the object? The person you're speaking to, with the intention to remain attentive to that person. That's how it starts anyway, as an implicit, that's probably our implicit plan most of the time. And then it's the next part, which is where it all falls apart, right? Because then the mind will wander, 100%. And when we notice it, because we're doing a practice, we do what? We bring our attention back. And because we add this little piece, do not interrupt, it makes it more likely that what? It makes I think we are more likely to focus attention, but it also makes us more likely to what? If you can't say anything, what are you more likely to? Well, you're less likely to interrupt, perhaps. But remember, this is a mindfulness practice. It's not what it looks like on the outside. Oh, they're not interrupting. That's the least important part of this practice. In fact, it's a red herring, even though the practice is called do not interrupt. What is it that not interrupting, having the intention, I'm not going to interrupt. I'm going to listen, I'm going to focus my attention on this person, and my mind wanders, I'm going to bring my attention back. I'm not going to interrupt. What is it that do not interrupt instruction offers us? What does it bring about? Well, that would be an outcome. As a result of it, you might. Of course, it could be like this. Oh my God, I can't believe what they're saying. I got to interrupt. I got to tell them that they're wrong. I got to correct them. They're going on and on and on. My God, this is the stupidest practice. How much longer are they going to go? And on top of that, I'm just so annoyed that I'm stuck here not being able to interrupt. How much listening of them are we doing in those moments? Not a lot, right? Because our internal dial is going way up. And it's not like we're choosing any of those thoughts. But because it's sort of like a pressure cooker in there,
Be aware of our thoughts.
we can become more aware of it. And those thoughts, is it just thoughts we're having in those moments, or is there something else going on in those moments?
Seem tense.
Seem tense, right? The impulse to interrupt is rarely a thought by itself. The impulse to interrupt is a whole swarming of heart rate going up and tension and tightness. So it's a practice that allows us to notice. And the impulse to interrupt, the thought to interrupt, the thing we were going to say are things that we begin to notice. And then, just like the decision, do I interrupt or don't? Do I go to dinner with that friend or not? Do I do the assignment or do the massage first? We actually have the awareness, which gives us the opportunity to make a decision. So it's not about not interrupting. You could have a very good reason to say to the person, excuse me, I just want to share something. I think maybe I misspoke, or is it okay if I add something? And they could say yes, and they could be like, I'm so glad you told me that. I totally misunderstood. So there's lots of reasons we might want to say something, and that I wouldn't call that interrupting. Okay. we've learned 2 practices, and then we learned a third, which is open monitoring. Okay, bless you. All right. Good. In many ways, a review of and a reminder of various things. So let's do this. Let's do a practice. Then let's take a break. Okay, the open monitoring practice comes third. It's not first. What's the object of attention in the open monitoring practice? There is no object of attention. There's no, I'm not going to, I mean, technically, sometimes it starts with a little bit of a focused attention piece to it. But the open monitoring practice has no object of attention. Will, during the course of this open monitoring practice that we do, will you, in fact, have objects that take center stage and will draw your attention? Yes. What's likely to draw your attention during the 20-minute practice we're about to do? A thought. What else might draw your attention? A sensation. A sound, right? Now the sound, is it possible to have it where when we do this open monitoring practice, you hear footsteps outside, but your attention doesn't get distracted? What would it be? This is getting into this deep reading. I think this chapter this week is the most challenging chapter we'll read on attention and awareness. If we're sitting and I get to a point where I say, and now open and receptive to whatever arises, and then I'm quiet for a while, so that you're engaging in what? And your attention will, and you may or may not, and it all hinges on this. It all hinges on this. And you've got this. You came into the class with this. The question is, how bright is the light bulb in any particular given moment? So if there's footsteps outside, are they the object of attention for the practice? No, but they are stimulation that arises during the practice. If you're just in this very bright light bulb state so that you're not caught in anything in particular, you're not thinking about something, you're just sort of like really like that tree, just witnessing the moment as it is, this sort of, useful image or metaphor, but not the way it's going to play out. Then the footsteps, they do what? They blink and they blink. They come and they go because, right? This too shall pass. Everything does. Now, how is it that the footsteps, the sound, you said sound, how can the sound though become a thought? How does a sound become a thought? This interesting metamorphosis.
Kind of hear the footsteps, kind of picturing it in your mind. Who's walking outside? What are they wearing?
Right. Okay. It's just a sound. If you were tired or you were walking on something else, you might not even notice it. But it's a sound, and then yes, you described it beautifully. The images would fall into the thought category. So you have that type of content, images, thoughts. You have the thought, you have the image, and then it prompts, your brain's doing its job. It's like making sense and trying to solve problems and figure things out. Starts to wonder who it is, kind of a thing. And now you got all these thoughts. Now, where are the footsteps at this moment in time? Gone. But where's the mind? Right? So during the practice, that will happen. Whether it's an external or an internal, you'll have your own thoughts that just pop up. We don't need footsteps to be thinking about a person anyway. And what we're interested in doing is reclaiming this open and receptive quality and what's necessary to be able to do that. awareness. And maybe if some thought comes along that really grips you, you might want to do something to relax a little bit. You might want to redirect your attention. This would be in the spirit of relaxation, meditations and practices and techniques and a focused attention type of practice that might get you back to this open and receptive state. So it's always in flux. Thank you for that nice set of observations. So this won't be a 20-minute practice. That was set as a challenge. Did you notice the obstacles? Yes,
Because you mentioned it's so long, can I sit on the floor instead of this chair?
say whatever you want.
Building off that, could we turn the overhead lights off if people are okay with that, or is that safe?
In the spirit of sharing with each other honestly and openly, or is anybody, which it's perfectly appropriate and I'm comfortable if somebody says, I don't want the lights off, but anybody would prefer that the lights not go off? Yeah, let's turn the lights off or make them dim.
You do both or just one?
No, I think one.
Oh, that was too much.
Sorry, wait. Oh my god, let's do that forever.
That's good.
Okay. All right, so find where you want to be. And by the way, I'm very proud of you all for that conversation, that discussion. It was far-ranging, and we traversed through so much of what we've discovered this semester. And if you hung back and you just sort of listened and took it in, I hope it was your attentiveness to it is where your participation shines.
Your whole class disappeared.
So much better.
Oh.
No peer pressure in this class.
I didn't know this was gonna start all of this.
Okay, so find your comfortable place. Feel safe and comfortable where you are. There's room over here. Makes me now. It's funny. The brain does. It is a social organ. It likes to gets ideas from other people. Okay, so let us bring ourselves into a posture that is comfortable, intentional. You know your posture. If you're laying down, you know you're laying down. If you're sitting up, you know you're sitting up. And if for some reason you've assumed a posture and you want to change it, you can do that. Leadership. Notice where we hold ourselves back. And sometimes that noticing creates opportunities. As we lower or close our eyes, whichever you prefer, resting attention on the sensations of the body sitting or reclining as we breathe. This will be a 6-minute practice. So be in a position where you feel you'll be comfortable for 6 minutes. Be creative with your posture. If you want to put your hands behind your head, you could do that since you don't have a cushion maybe. Or just lay comfortably as you would maybe if you're used to laying on a mat. But it's important that we're comfortable, we're at ease. As we breathe, and in many ways, the focused attention and body scan practice, and even the beginning of the open monitoring practice that you have on the app, which says to, sense yourself like a mountain, grounded, steady, stable, as you breathe. That's sort of a little bit of a focused attention kind of imagery, focusing on an image. It might inspire a sense of something noble and dignified, like a mountain. But because this is a 6-minute practice, I'm going to jump to the chase. Expand the field of awareness, which in many ways, for some of us, might be better understood as if you notice yourself paying attention to something, just sort of take a breath and it's not an easy word, I think. It doesn't make really great sense to me, but let go. You know, when we hear that phrase, sometimes just the hearing of it does have an effect. So when you find yourself thinking, let go, the awareness, I think, already is the letting go. So it just helps us stay in that open state a little longer. So let's move formally into you are guiding yourself in the open monitoring practice, like a witness, present for your experience as it is, noticing whatever comes and goes, including thoughts and feelings. Everything is allowed. Nothing is not a part of this practice. Nothing ruins this practice. It might be a pleasant practice experience. It might be a less pleasant practice experience, but there's nothing that comes along that ruins it. And the moment you are aware that something has come along, or even that you have a belief that somehow it's been ruined, you're liberated again into that open and receptive state as we breathe. Breathing. Witnessing. And as needed, taking care. Slower breath is always available to you, even when you're observing. Redirecting your attention is always available to you, even when you're observing. aware. Listening. Aware of the body, aware of the breath, of the body moving with the breath flowing with the body. And when you're ready, in the next moment or two, with an awareness of doing so, still open, receptive, witnessing, lifting the gaze, open the eyes, and when comfortable in the next moment or two, making our way back to our seats. So thank you for the teamwork and coming up with a plan, game plan for that practice. A few comments or observations or questions. This is a very important practice. It may be in many ways, some would say, the practice that all the practices have been pointing to, though they're all important. Any questions or comments, observations of the practice we just did, questions about the practice?
I thought it was more pleasant to sit on the floor. I don't know if it was because like breaking up, like we'd been sitting in the chairs for so long and stuff like that, but I found it more pleasant and easier to like, I guess, just monitor without like thinking like, oh, my body hurts from sitting in this chair for so long, things like that.
Right, well,
I know it's part of it, but like,
Yeah,
it's like
very-
an annoying part.
that-
Like it's just like my body hurts. Like I want to change it.
Okay, you just wrapped up the challenge and the obstacle together, and you also demonstrated that you've got you have depth of understanding of this, which is very nice. Right, find the posture that works for you. People do many practices laying down, and I encourage that. Obviously, in the courtroom and the office and at the meeting, it's challenging, but when you can. You're still reinforcing and developing those same capacities, and to the extent that you found it relaxing and in some ways a more pleasant experience, which can reinforce the doing of it, so that's not a bad thing. And in many ways we could say that the laying down, at least for you, is bringing a little bit of a what into it?
Relaxation.
Right. And it's nice to bring those together.
I had a similar journey, except the stimulus was the light. I was really tired this morning, so the not having the lights on was nice, but at the same time, the whole time I was focused on, okay, how can I be present for the practice and not like become overwhelmed with tiredness and let that take control.
So, you know, you're not wanting to fall asleep, which is maybe what you're pointing to, is not wanting to become overwhelmed with tiredness, but the invitation is also be present for the tiredness. Notice the tiredness. Notice the heaviness of the body. Notice the nature of the flow of the air, of the breath. Like, get to know tired, right? Inhabit tired. Because awareness is equally interested in everything. It doesn't find the TV show more interesting than the feeling of lethargy. And the quality of awareness is the brightness of it. It doesn't really fall asleep. Now, the tireder we are, the less bright it might be. And it sounds like you were aware of your experience with maybe a little bit of internal, a little battle. And the key is this, and we'll get to this when we get to negotiation and our internal negotiations, where we're negotiating with ourselves. Our interest is noticing that there's an internal battle, not in stopping it, right? Now, the stopping it or making a decision, which one, is a noble endeavor, but it follows the awareness. It doesn't dictate, the awareness doesn't dictate it. Very, very nice, yes?
I've been working on like the gently redirecting aspect as opposed to just redirecting, because I noticed that I would, like, although I would notice the mind wandering and redirect, I'd usually be like, how did it happen again? Like, because it's crazy when you notice how much it happens. It's like, how are we still doing this? So this time I was like very intentional of when a thought would arise, like regardless of the content, but almost especially if it was like maybe like an anxiety inducing thought, I would just be like, oh, that's interesting. Like, oh, okay. And then like give it nothing more than that. Like end it right there. And then be like, all right, we're back in this like neutral abyss. And things are just like, you know what I mean?
So it's really important that as I'm hearing that, one, you were aware that your mind began to paint some worrisome thought. You were aware. So without that, good luck, right? And then you did what? You met it with an
Affirmation?
affirmation. Because you said what to yourself?
That's interesting.
Which is better than, what'd you say originally? Like my mind goes off and like, this is not
Yeah.
again.
Yeah.
And so not again is what? It's mind wandering. That's mind wandering. We just sort of forget that and we take it seriously. It's mind wandering. So first the mind thinks about something in the future that makes us a little anxious. Now we're aware that it's happened, but the awareness doesn't like it. Now we have another thought because of the awareness, like, oh my God, it's happening again. But that is also because we could be focusing on the breath, but now we're off with a bunch of thoughts of narrating our experience. And so whether it's, what was the word you said to yourself? The affirmation? This interesting. Well, if you can choose, that's interesting, or you can choose, oh my God, it's happening again. They're both thoughts that are being generated. One is being generated internally, and the other, you're taking a little bit of, you're generating the thought on purpose, and so it's a redirection of attention towards a go-to strategy, which in this case is that. Any other yes?
Dan Harris kind of talked about when he started practicing, like specifically talked about like having like an itch and it getting like more and more like you have to itch it. And I kind of felt that like halfway through, like just when I kind of felt like, my mind was starting to open up. I wasn't really focusing on anything. Then like all of a sudden I have an itch and it's getting worse and worse. But, I tried to just like sit with it and not itch it. And then I was thinking about the reading from the chapter where we're talking about like the flashlight versus like the light bulb. And then I was like, crossed my mind. It's like, well, I'm shining the flashlight on the itch right now, so the light bulb can't be as bright because I'm using it for the flashlight. So then I think once I finally kind of something else popped into my mind, like, the itch kind of subsided. Then later on, I'm thinking, well, it's not that itchy anymore. So yeah, just kind of fleeting throughout.
Wonderful. And you're like aware of this little internal, like it's interesting. It's all these little parts of us trying to solve and figure something out. They're all at the ready, right? So I want to make comment on one thing that you said, then we'll take a break, because I said we would take one, and then we'll come back, and I've got some cookies and some other apples. When you said I was focusing my flashlight on it, and that dimmed awareness, okay, so I want to just comment on that. Oftentimes when there's an itch, to use that a great example, our attention goes to it. Okay. Now, a powerful application of the focus attention practice is notice the itch. Have it become the object of attention. You could redirect to the breath, and then probably because you've redirected, it's going to slowly, if we could really focus on the breath, it would lose some of it, unless it was needing to be attended to, but most itches aren't. And then when you focus on it, if it becomes the object of attention, then it becomes, and awareness is a part of this, it's intense, it's subsiding, it's moving a little bit to the left. I have this desire to reach out for it. Like you become very aware of the experience amid the itch, but you're observing it. And the awareness, the light bulb doesn't necessarily dim, but that's a nice application that the more, because it's all in the same place. But what tends to happen, which does result in the dimming, is you begin to turn your flashlight of attention. It just goes to the edge, right? That's sort of a this. And then might you begin to have thoughts? What thoughts might you have? Okay. And now what's happening is awareness is dimming because we're getting pulled into all these thoughts, right? But the application of attention, like putting under a microscope a slide and looking at it through the microscope and saying that's the itch, that gives us more granular understanding of it's fluctuating, it's coming and going. Actually, if we could just stay put, it goes. You know, you can look at your classmates for the next half of our class. Occasionally people are like, it's constantly happening. We're just constantly itching things. And if we were distracted, we wouldn't notice it. So very good insight. All right. It is 10 after. Let's come back at 20 after. And I will try to find the Herbie Hancock thing. We will start with the chapter on awareness, since Trent nicely brought that into our conversation. So let's turn to.
This wasn't as fast as I was expecting. That's more top heavy. The producers that run it, it's over older.
We've got 35, 45 minutes before we will take a little break for 2 weeks. It's a 1 week break technically, but it is possible since we're at the end of the next week that we lose track. So try not to lose track. Chapter 4, awareness. Chapter 4, awareness. In what ways, what did you learn from the chapter first? Big picture takeaways, chapter on awareness. And you could certainly begin with the question that I prompted you all with, how does awareness differ from attention? Or what is an example of how a brighter light bulb of awareness can be beneficial when you receive critical feedback on a draft memo? Or something that you took away from the chapter? Yes.
So 53.
Does everyone get to page 53? Good.
Stars. So, like, for instance, when we speak of awareness, we're referring to the total field.
Okay, I'm sorry, don't good. You're at the bottom.
Oh, yeah. 53, beneath the stars, that first paragraph or sentence. When we speak of awareness, we are referring to the total field of experience, which at the start of the thought experiment included whatever you perceived with your eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and skin, as well as any feelings and or thoughts. With focusing on anything in particular, you had a general sense of all that arose in the field of experience. So I think for me, I've been not struggling to figure out the difference between attention and awareness, but I think it's the idea of almost observing and just being, I don't want to say aware, but aware of what's around you, whereas attention is mostly, say, laser focused on versus noticing there are chairs and being aware of the chair in the middle of the room.
Yeah, that's great. That's right. What's really nice about pointing out that attention is sort of like it's grabbing at things. Attention grabs at things, right? It reaches out. And then it investigates. It's like, oh, I wonder what this is. And I mean, you know, we're putting words into something that is invisible, so it's an interesting thing to do, and you did it nicely. So attention is sort of reaching out and grabbing, and it's sort of always like this. Sometimes we know where it is, sometimes we don't know where it is, right? And awareness is this, and I love the way you said it, it's the noticing or observing You said it's almost like being aware. It's like, right, we use the word for, but no, it's because it's hard to put into words. But when you have a thought, like Junko did, of I wonder what time it is, and you're not aware, and you reach for your phone to look, and you had a thought, your attention sort of latches onto it, because most of the thoughts just are constantly coming and going, streaming by. And then you're being affected by it to look at the phone. In the other case, though, it was a similar thing. She had the thought, and she was aware of it. I mean, she reached out but then she was aware that she had the thought. And to be aware that you have a thought and to understand from your own direct experience how that's different than having a thought and not being aware you're having that thought. I couldn't think of a better metaphor than a light bulb. Just something it doesn't brighten that thing, it brightens everything, and that thing is brightened along the way. Because after that thought is another thought often, and another thought. So it's brightening the space. So that's nice the way you framed it. Thanks for starting us off with that, Gian. What was it about that to you was useful?
Yeah, I think the fact that I've just been thinking of attention, trying to figure out the distinction or so that we had like in class, we pulled the marker out a couple weeks ago. Then you threw it. That was like an example. So I just trying to figure out where are the different examples or ways I can think about it. So
Okay.
I think for me, it's just being clear.
Yes.
It's everything around you, as
Yes.
opposed to a single object.
Yes, and we can yet be aware of that object, right? But it's not the object. And because our attention wanders so much, and as you said nicely, as our attention gets pulled into things, the general awareness sort of dims. I think we spend most of our time with a very dim light bulb of awareness, constantly being yanked around in ways that are useful and not by the thoughts we're having. And we can go a whole life being very much yanked around by the thoughts we're having. We can even have it where our thoughts are generally very productive, very useful, very helpful, and it's a great life. But there's not a lot of awareness necessarily to what else is going on, even though it's very successful and it's working very well. So I'm not saying there should or shouldn't be, but for many of us, the awareness opens up doors to pathways of purpose and advantage. So yes, I love I like that it was right after that thought experiment, because it really is the falling away of these things that we're paying attention to that sort of open up that insight. Okay, very nice. Anybody else? Chapter 4, yes.
So like I get more of like a general takeaway. There's not necessarily like a point in the book that I could like point out directly. When you have less awareness, then your thoughts have more control over you, or at least like, because if you're not aware of what's happening.
Could you just rephrase? When you say your thoughts have more control over you, I mean, your thoughts are you. So could you say it in a more descriptive way? The thoughts that arise do have what effect? The thoughts that arise.
I'm trying to get at like the yanking that you were just talking about. Like you get yanked in things and like you'll get lost in the content of your thoughts.
Yes.
Versus like what I said like before we went on the break with the open monitoring practice. Like I had like an anxious thought that like if I went down that rabbit hole would obviously get worse. But I noticed that I had the thought and then I kind of was like, oh, this is an anxious thought. But instead of going forward with it, and only because I noticed was I able to be like, okay, interesting, let's move on. But if you're not aware, then you get that thought and you like treat it like it matters more than it does. And you can just get like.
Yeah, you're giving. Yes. Yeah. When you say you treat it, we're adding a lot of condition and intentionality to it. It's just treat it. It just proliferates. One begets another, begets another, begets another, and good luck where it takes you. That's right. And we could say that they're controlling us. I mean, there are ways that we can try to put words. My thoughts are controlled. But to be very clear, we have a thought. And by the way, is the thought an anxious thought?
That's what I'm characterizing it
So
as.
if we were to see the thought, I'm jumping ahead, I'm just going to spend a second on this. If the thought, though it's internal, were the challenge, What's the obstacle? You have the thought arises, life happens, which can be a thought. Now the anxious part, you're glomming onto the thought. So what I'm hearing you say is that a thought arises, you get caught up in the thought, and then what arises along with it? Anxiety. And this is a feeling, and it usually takes hold in the body, and these could be the obstacles that accompany. Okay, so what would be the big picture takeaway from that, in terms of the chapter on awareness?
Just like the importance of awareness and like how it ties into everything that we've been learning.
Very nice. And part of what we're exploring, the hypothesis for us is this. If we find that that's useful, if we think, you know what, that has merit, then at least as far as I can do my best, we can be inspired by these conversations. We can be inspired by moments when the light bulb happens to get brighter when we realize it. But it's the practicing of mindfulness that meaningfully increases the light bulb's brightness and maintains it as an enduring trait moving forward. But you also have a light bulb anyway, and it has a brightness anyway, and it will get brighter at times anyway if you eat well and you sleep well and you are not overly caught in things and you're interested in listening to others and ourselves, etc. Without practicing anything, the light bulb will, in my experience, be brighter. So there are many ways to brighten it. What else on the chapter on awareness? Okay, 58, talk just a little bit louder.
The, I guess, third paragraph. Importantly, while you have direct control over the intensity of a flashlight, that is, you can sharpen or dull your focus and the intensity with which you pay attention to something. You can only have indirect control over the light bulb. Although awareness is not consciously controlled, it brightens when attention is withdrawn from the object. So that's between and among objects.
Yeah. And what does that offer you?
I think like building off of what John said and stuff like that, it helped me see that like attention, like a flashlight, is very like, I guess, self-leadership, if you were going to put it in that terms, like it's very much in your control. It's first person. It's like you're in the driver's seat, and you can refine your skills and you can do focused attention practices and things like that. While awareness, it seems almost like you have to do all these things and then like kind of, I don't know, like almost like a passenger, like,
Yes.
and take yourself out of it and take, like, not have these emotions and impulses and stuff like that just so directly. I think some other point of the chapter talks about how you can't multitask awareness. It's like, or you can't multitask attention. You can only focus on one thing, even if you do it fastly. So I think it was a nice way of summing that up, and I like the, I guess, metaphor.
That's nice. And there was a metaphor that some of you spoke of from the Dan Harris chapter. Do you remember the water-related metaphor? It was the waterfall. And so what are we doing when here's the thoughts, feelings, and sensations, right, continuously, and if we're in it, like there's not a lot of awareness necessarily, or at least it's very, very hard to establish and maintain that awareness. But if we sort of step out, then what is it that we are inhabiting more of in that stepping out? Okay. Awareness. We're observing this, right? And so again, it's like there's in the snow globe, observing the snow globe, right? There's just so many, every metaphor that we're using, light bulb and flashlight, you can pick and choose the one that resonates with you and understand how they come together. Very nice. Who else? And or if you want to, you can also bring up something from the Michael Singer chapter, which is one of, I think, the most insightful readings this semester. So it can be something from the awareness chapter and or because he is speaking to it very profoundly, the Michael Singer chapter on the voice inside your head. Because the voice inside your head is happening often, right? But what is it that we can have in relationship to the voice in our head? We can observe it, we can notice it. Which is, again, talking about being behind the waterfall, which is, of course, talking about looking at the snow globe. It also could be a getting to the balcony, which we'll get to. If you haven't yet spoken, I will say this, not to feel any pressure because you have a whole semester and you can participate in many ways. But at the beginning, I remember who spoke the first day because it was like the very beginning. I didn't know you all. And I'll remember who speaks on the last day because it'll be the very end. You know what that's called in psychology? Primacy and recency. And this in some ways is a little break point. So I just want to say, I'm interested in what everybody has to say, but this could be a good opportunity. So either one, yes. And then let's start with, if we could. And then.
What stuck with me was when he's talking about
What page are you?
I'm on the voice inside your head, number 11.
Okay, page 11. Okay, go ahead. Where are you on the page?
Can I skip to 3 different lines in it?
Read them out loud and do your skipping.
Okay. That is, there's a buildup of energy inside that needs to be released. If you watch objectively, you'll see that when there's a buildup of nervous, fearful, or desire-based energies inside, the voice becomes extremely active. I'm gonna skip over a little bit. That voice talks because you're not okay, and talking releases energy. I'm gonna skip a little bit more. It is actually narrating the world for you. Skip a little bit more. Is that the narration makes you feel more comfortable with the world around you.
Yes.
This part kind of reminded me of DNI because what I didn't realize when we were doing the DNI is that like agitated puppy inside of you has like all this energy and you just want to release it in that conversation. And that called to mind this experience for me because I never thought about it as a buildup of energy.
Yeah, it's brilliant. That's like, so you just tied those together so nicely. Where would you say, read the last part, the very last sentence you read.
The narration makes you feel more comfortable with the world around you.
So if we could see this, what would the narration be? It is a blank technique.
Relaxation.
More specifically, more broadly, you're right, but it's not, relaxation is one part of the
setting.
It's a settling technique. It's a settling technique. And why is it that are we doing it on purpose? No, but it can be very useful if we notice it because there are other settling techniques that we could use instead. So if I'm talking to somebody and they're talking to me and I'm getting really agitated because I'm just, for whatever reason, or maybe I could do another settling. So saying something, interrupting, thinking in my head, doing all this sort of stuff is in some ways trying to make sense of it, come up with a plan. All these are in many ways sometimes very useful. As lawyers, you want to come up with plans, you want to solve problems. But so often this brain isn't knowing which it is, it's just tense. And it's a strategy. Very nice. So what was the takeaway for you from that?
Not so much takeaway was basically that it's a settling technique to make you more comfortable, just more comfortable. But another thing that it made me think about was in DNI, it's like in conversations, I noticed that you want to get this internal dialogue out, whereas when you're by yourself, like this internal dialogue just stays inside.
Yes.
Which I thought was interesting.
Yes. So many things are so interesting about what you're speaking to. The connection you made to DNI is amazing. It's an amazing connection. And what you just said about sort of when we're in conversation with somebody else or when we're in a conversation with ourselves, there's something going on that's very similar in both cases, and it is. And so in many ways, if we looked at the dials, in the time when somebody's talking to us, external dial goes high. And then if we're in this situation where the tension is mounting, internal dial does what? It goes high. And then the question is, what can we do? We have settling techniques. And also we can notice. So what might you do the next time you find yourself in one of those, either of the different types of scenarios you just raised, now that there's a little more insight that you obviously already possessed, but you just sort of put these pieces together with this reading. What might be a little different next time you feel the need to say interrupt?
Be aware and notice that I have this movement.
Let me share with you, that's where our conversation stops. That's the big ticket. What happens next? Do you draw upon a settling technique? Do you interrupt? Do you make some decision about the relationship? Do you go and get a cookie? Do you think about, that's where what happens next is so important and interesting. But you landed it exactly where we tend to leap over all too quickly. Like, what do I do? And to Gian's sort of masterful comment, we observe. And we become more attuned to what that actually means. And in many ways, when we begin to observe, there's that thought, that thought, that thought, that thought, and we have this intuitive sense that it may not be so useful as much as it is trying to relieve tension. Maybe we can find ourselves behind the waterfall, and it becomes a less gripping experience. But this is all an internal relationship that we have to our experience, with awareness becoming something that we can't make happen, to your point, but we can cultivate it so it's there more readily available to us. Okay, very nice. I got it. Anybody?
It's empty. Thank you.
Sure. Anybody? Yes, Amelia.
So on page 12, and then kind of going into 13, the bottom paragraph in 12, where it talks about how, like, in the winter, and it's cold outside, and you say the words, like, it's cold, like, you knew it was cold already, but you saying those words kind of made it worse in a way. You're acknowledging it instead of saying, like, we're almost home, like, a positive. And then it goes into the last paragraph with 13 about personal growth. And I just felt like the takeaway from, like, these whole 2 pages about how our mind is so powerful, and, like, the way we're always, like, talking to ourselves in a way. And if we just change, like, our perspective on things and kind of, like, redirect, I know we've, like, talked about redirection a lot, and we redirect our thoughts to be a different perspective, that's where, like, true personal growth comes. And I thought that was really interesting.
It's a very nice. Yeah, he gets deep as he gets towards the end, especially. Very nice. Ellie, and then Lily.
He makes a lot of fascinating points. I appreciate a lot of his research. When I read this book a few years ago, the thing that really stood out to me and kind of like sparked a lot of my thought process was his take, and it's on page 12, of what you end up experiencing is really a personal presentation of the world according to you, rather than spark, unfiltered experience of what is really out there. This mental manipulation of the outer world experience allows you to buffer reality as it comes in, and then later your consciousness is actually experiencing your mental model of reality, not reality itself. I think there's a lot of value in understanding that, like, your body and your senses are always filtering and always kind of like looking for answers as you're experiencing reality. You're never just objectively experiencing reality for what it is. You're always kind of wanting it to tailor to you in your narrative. And no one's perfect. No one could ever transcend that per se. But to be able to look at the world more objectively for what it is, especially when it comes to like working in the law, can really help you to like make objective decisions and look at both sides.
Right. This is the nicely framed the paradox. We would not be here if our ancestors did not have these survival instincts and the way that the brain works that would filter things, allow us to look for, move in the direction of all the things that in some ways we were interested in freeing ourselves from when it happens to be a future thought that is suggesting peril when there is no peril. We're hanging on and ruminating to something. We're opening the refrigerator, not seeing what's right in front of us, even though we're trying to get it because we're so lost in our thoughts. I think we want to survive, and we want to thrive, and we want to draw upon this, hundreds of thousands of years of parts of this evolution and millions of years more broadly, but not have it be that this machine, that this computer which has bugs. It has only been evolving for, neuroscientists would say, 100,000, 200,000, some 100,000, not a long time, more parts more than others longer, and the prefrontal cortex least of all. So how do we, and part of this is, well, let me inhabit the awareness of my experience with a little more trust that this might be interesting, but not to jettison the other. I'm not interested in jettisoning the other. That's where that song, the Supertramp song, the logical song. When I was young, it seemed that life is so wonderful, magical, and all the birds in the trees, they were singing so happily, joyfully, playfully, watching me. That to me is awareness. You're just like in the flow of life. And then they sent me away to teach me how to be logical, rational. And it's like this inner, and we navigate that. So it's ours just to navigate. Yes.
Yeah, and just going off of exactly that, a lot of what Michael Singer talks about is like childlike wonder, and you seeing things for the first time and being like, wow, that's a cup, or wow, that's a bird, or wow, whatever it is. And how can you experience that like your entire life and bring that part of you back to the world, to kind of look at life as if you're looking at it for the first time in every moment, because you are, which is really cool.
And Ellen Langer, who we this chapter is a Harvard psychologist, social psychologist, she's not interested in meditating it. She's very interested in mindfulness. And her approach is intentionally look at what's new, look at what's different, look at the colors, look at the context, look at see the newness in it. We can practice and the newness becomes more apparent to us, but we can also intentionally and deliberately look for the contrast and the newness, etc. No.
I was following up on what Amelia and Ellie also said, and how important or how powerful the mind is. And on the bottom of page 13, I had highlighted, if used properly, the same mental voice that has been the source of worry, distraction, and general neurosis can become the launching ground for true spiritual awakening. And just how, like, overall picture of our perspective and how that's not always the truth. Like, our thoughts are not always like accurate in reality, but just kind of checking ourselves and understanding the powerful mind and how that influences our perspective on the world.
Yes, and the invitation is to see it clearly and then decide what to do with it. Most of the thoughts I have are pretty useful. I wouldn't want to not have them. Some of the thoughts I have aren't so useful or they're repetitive. I can pivot away from them. And then of course there's those, don't get me wrong, that I'm just not aware of that are influencing me in ways that, don't lead me to my best moments. But yes, very nice. And so that'll bring us to, so with our time, we're going to listen to, I think, 3 minutes of Herbie Hancock. We'll listen to 30 seconds of the song that he's referring to, So What, a very important song in its genre. We will then respond to a couple more questions, look to the paper. Ellie is going to just naturally, seamlessly walk around and give everyone a little spritz of eucalyptus. Raise your hand if you do not want a spritz of eucalyptus. Okay, so a little less spritz over here. Are you okay if your neighbors get it? Yeah? Okay. So by all means, let this be in the background of awareness, noticing that there's movement and there's an aroma. Are there any other? We're going to come back to this, and we'll turn to what were the three? What were some of the three of the three? What were the three different attitudes or ways that we have to be reactive that he refers to, Yuri refers to? Striking back. Breaking off. I'm out of here. Fine. You win. Do you have one that you Do you have one that you thank you. Do you have one that you lean towards?
It depends on the circumstance if I'm with, right? If you're with family or friends or professors, obviously naturally it'll be different.
Okay. Very. So all of them, but it depends on the situation.
Yes.
Okay. Who else? Any that predominate that you notice? I tend to strike back, or I tend to give up, or I tend to withdraw.
I'm usually a withdrawal. Or like avoid it when it comes to like anything I'm uncomfortable. I'm like, never mind. And I'll like U-turn. I'm like, absolutely not.
Okay, right. Which sometimes can be useful. and other times we miss up, right? So it's how do we navigate it? So when we pick up with this, it's good to know, it's good to be aware, and it's also good to see where it can be useful and where it may not be so useful. And usually there's an unpleasant feeling that's driving the reactive part. And there's usually an okay feeling that's driving the same decision, but it's not reactive. It's useful, it's appropriate, it's effective. And so again, Ellie sort of pointed out this like bifurcation, and we're truly trying to navigate a terrain that's complex with a brain that's brilliantly suited for us, but errs on the side of caution. And that's okay. We don't want to lose that. I don't want to lose that. I'd rather assume than not the what if, but not all the time. Okay, Herbie Hancock. I also want to talk about challenges and obstacles. This touches on challenges and obstacles. We'll do that when we talk about the paper. Okay, Herbie Hancock, would you let us hear so what for 30 seconds?
30 seconds exactly.
Now 20 seconds. The song we listen to on the break? So what? Miles Davis, or anything by Miles Davis. But here we go. Herbie Hancock, who played who was a younger that joined his quintet in this case, and he's talking about an experience.
In French?
So what? One of Miles' compositions from in late 50s, I guess. And Tony Williams was playing drums, Ron Carter bass, Wayne Short on saxophone, and it was a really hot night. The music was tight, it was powerful, it was innovative, and fun. We were having a lot of fun, and the music was on. Tony Williams was burning on his drums. And so right in the middle of Miles' solo, when he was playing one of his amazing solos, and I'm trying, I'm in there and I'm playing, right in the middle of his solo, I played the wrong chord. A chord that it just sounded completely wrong. It sounded like a big mistake. And I did this, and I went, oh, like this. And then I put my hands around my ears. And Miles paused for a second. And then he played some notes that made my chord right. He made it correct. Which astounded me. I couldn't believe what I heard. Miles was able to make something that was wrong into something that was right, with the power of the choice of notes that he made and the feeling that he had. And so I couldn't play for about a minute. I couldn't even touch the piano. But what I realize now is that Miles didn't hear it as a mistake. He heard it as something that happened, just an event. And so that was part of the reality of what was happening at that moment. And he dealt with it. He found something that, since he didn't hear it as a mistake, he felt it was his responsibility to find something that fit. And he was able to do that. That taught me a very big lesson about not only music, but about life. We can look for the world to be as we would like it to be as individuals, make it easy for me, that idea. We can look for that. But I think the important thing is that we grow. And the only way we can grow is to have a mind that's open enough to be able to accept situations, to be able to experience situations as they are and turn them into medicine, turn poison into medicine. Take whatever situation you have and make something constructive happen with it. That's what I learned from that situation in my house.
So, he didn't mention the word mindfulness. He didn't mention the mindful living flow. But what did he refer to in the mindful living flow, for example? Starting with, life happens, right? And then, was it a mistake? He saw it as a mistake. That would be taking a sound and then having a story, which was mistake. Taking the challenge, and it becomes obstacles. But not for Miles. There was no obstacle for Miles. There was just doing what he loved to do in situations that sometimes are more nuanced and not as easy. And in fact, Miles loved the less easy. Thank you. Have a good trip. And all right. So let's talk now, because I want you don't need to do anything on your paper over the break. And you don't need to do anything, well, you might have to do a little something for the week that you come back. But I just want you to have this in advance. So if you want to talk to me about it, in the days and weeks to come, we can. So here's the thing, overview. Your final paper invites you to draw upon your personal mindfulness journey over the semester as a way to demonstrate your understanding of key concepts, practices, and applications explored in this course and by you in day-to-day life. Okay, so you're going to be putting it all together. Your reflections will frame your paper as a means of communicating your grasp of the subject matter. So I'm going to look for it in ways that will suggest that you've learned and you understand and you can share and communicate with others. Your paper should be accessible to a reader interested in your topic. So they see your title and they go, oh, I like that, who is new to mindfulness, so they don't know anything about it, and help guide them as they consider beginning their own journey. You're welcome to follow a reflective narrative model like the one Dan Harris used in the assigned reading. So if you like that, you can draw upon that. Weaving together experiences, conceptual understanding, and application. You may also take a different approach that we can talk about and you can come up with, a more typical academic paper structure, but with the same method of evaluation set out above. Okay, so I want you to have structure and not be left without that kind of guidance, but at the same time have freedom to maneuver in ways that resonate with you. Here's length and format. There's research saying you're going to be doing outside research as well, and it gives you a little bit of, some people say how much, so it's giving a little bit of the how much. But here's the most important part for this. Now, required elements. This is the point of evaluation, however you structure your paper. The following list identifies key elements to address in your paper. They are provided as a blueprint to guide you in demonstrating your understanding of the course material. So I want this to be helpful to you. I want to give you, like, what are you looking for? This is what I'm looking for. As I read the paper, I will look to see that these elements are addressed. So I will be looking for these. But not just that they're there, that they're meaningfully there. But they're not intended to be exhaustive. To the contrary, again, it's your paper. Importantly, this list is not like a checklist. People who have done it as a checklist have not done as well as they could have because they were just sort of going through the motions, making sure they got it in, and it just was hollow in many ways, hollower than it might have been. So now I'm giving you 12 things that at least should be in here in some form or another. Title and subtitle, we'll talk more about that in time, but the subtitle is what gives the reader a real sense of where your paper's going. So if it's like mindfulness in my journey, okay, but where's your paper going? How to work with procrastination. Okay, now we know where your paper's going. Background, why you chose to take this class or learn about mindfulness, or now or previously. Your topic selection, why you chose to write about the topic. I'm expecting to see a little bit about what mindfulness is. I'm expecting to see a bit about, or a lot about mindfulness practice, maybe touching on the science, specific practices and techniques. You'll have one mindfulness practice at least, and one settling technique. And you'll draw upon those that you have been practicing or you have found useful or that you want to be practicing. This is not like I'm at the top of the mountain. We're only at base camp. We've gotten the basics. But you'll share those so a reader could walk away and go, ooh, I got that practice. I know how to do it. Thank you. I got that settling technique. Ooh, I know how to do that. Thank you. Maybe they want both. Maybe they like one. Then we've got the impediments of practice, challenges you've experienced. I call them impediments, not to get into the challenge word. Applications, and we'll, when we come back, talk about the next two parts, 9 and 10. Application, this is where the challenges and obstacles exercise that we'll be developing and deepening and talking about will become very relevant. For example, last week, Ethan talked about, getting a letter from a law firm saying, didn't get the job. Challenge. That's a challenge. It's objective. Everybody would see it the same way. It's the obstacles that become interesting, and the mindfulness practice and the settling techniques help with the obstacles. So there's a lot of insight you can offer the reader, as well as some very specific steps that they can take that are actionable. This is where we'll spend time one-on-one talking. I'll provide you all with a little feedback from the things that you wrote, which was very helpful. And many of you that, as I read through them, were getting this, making it a concrete challenge. Understanding the why. That's the second part of it. And then personal reflections and practical tips. So this is letting you know really what to have in there is the heart of it, and then how you choose to do it. And it's the challenge and obstacle. You will be picking 2 or 3 challenges and talking about those. Here's an example of, for me, when I find myself going into a moot court competition, I begin to feel, and at this moment in time, and I have done this settling technique, which is helpful, but because I've been practicing, I'm actually more, however you choose to frame that, it'll be building off of everything we've been talking about, everything you've been reading about. Are there any questions about that are important questions for now? We're going to, when we come back in 2 weeks, we're going to pick up with that, and you're going to have a little assignment for the week after you come back that takes your the thing you wrote, and it asks you to be very specific in breaking it down to a sentence. And this will be the next step in that process, and we'll be talking about that. So, and there's guidance here to further elaborate. Yes, PJ.
You ranked our choices. Are you going to kind of confirm with us?
You got your choice. So we'll talk about it. Great question. I'm so glad you said that. You get your choice, and you'll drop it into this narrative. And we'll talk when we talk about that. Some people may also want to change their paper topic when they have a better sense of what the paper is intended to do. Yes.
Is there a way to reach out to you about our topic and getting external sources? I don't know if I rather get a better I know for example you have copies of tech chapters.
Reach out, yes. Well, we can meet. When we meet, we can raise it, and you don't have to wait till we meet. You can say, I'm writing about this, and because of the challenges and obstacles that you'll be submitting, I'll have a really good sense of what you're writing about. Anything else in that regard? All right, so, yes.
How much can we go to, can we tell you this, is specifically what I'm thinking? How much feedback can we get to you? Or get
As much as you
from
want.
you?
I'll meet with you for any time you want, for as long as you want. And if you don't want to meet that much or much at all beyond what I request, I'm good with that too. Because it's all about It begins with this, and it continues with that. All right, so please continue to practice the PMP as best you can. If you're going somewhere, find a spot. When we come back, if you haven't been doing the PMP, if you haven't found it helpful, you're done with it. You're done. No, but you're done with it because if by now, and then we'll apply another variation of it. So we're taking the things we've done and we are building on them. We still have a little time left. You all, so haven't you learned yet?
Oh.
You're in the future, aren't you?
Unfortunately, today's rough. And the morning's been rough. It's okay.
Let's take the rough, like our but for a pause, the little puppy dog. His name is Rough. So. Yes.
For when we come to writing the paper, are we gonna get our first field guide back for the reading purposes?
Oh, I'm supposed to give you your field guides back? Oh, there they are. Okay. Yes. So on your way out, I'll put them here. So I'm just gonna lay them out. On the way, you pick it up if you got yours. So let us close with a practice.
Are you like our drawings when you review them?
Yes. And we're going to show them and tell next time we're together. I did, and I made copies of them in my scrapbook.
That's so cute.
Bravo.
So let us do this. The stop practice. And in our chapter on awareness, the new settling technique is the observe practice, where we just observe. It's the waterfall practice. It's the snow globe from the outside practice. It's the drop the story, feel the energy. So let us, with 45 seconds to go, stop. You're going to see stop signs when you're traveling or just if you're staying here. We stop. We pause. We take a few breaths, a little slower, a little deeper. You've got your triangle line box. Let's do this twice. And even if there's a part of you that's itching to move forward because it's sort of already there, there's a part of you that's aware of that, and that part is always here. And then we observe. You can observe with your eyes closed. You can open. In fact, let's open our eyes and observe